text 11, text 12? 11. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Wow. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamodirayat Vadanti Tat Tattva Vedas Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan Iti Shabdyate Vadanti Tat Tattva Vedas Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan Iti Shabdyate. Translation: learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and or Bhagavan. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The absolute truth is both subject and object. And there's no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun rays are to the sun god. Less intelligent students of either of these above schools, sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization, but those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views, seen from different angles of vision. Paragraph. As it is explained in the first sloka of the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, the supreme truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from the illusion of relativity. In the relative world, the knower is different from the known. In the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing. In the relative world, the knower is the living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known is inert matter or inferior energy. Therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energy, whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies in this of the supreme energetic. There is no qualitative difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusioned, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is the sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute realm, in the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute. If you're not a philosopher, you're scratching your head. What's going on? And this second paragraph is expanding on the first sentence of the first paragraph. The absolute truth is both subject and object, and there's no qualitative difference there. Now, obviously, there's a difference because there's two terms, subject, object. And the subject isn't the object. The object is not the subject. So just like, the seer and the seen, or the lover and the beloved, there is a sense of oneness between the lover and the beloved. Obviously, there's two because love requires two. The lover and the beloved. So a vessel, that's the abode of love, that's the subject. And then the subject regards the object of love, with love. And in that sense, there's a oneness. So here we go. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's simultaneous oneness and difference philosophy. The term is applied, philosophy, but philosophy can be, variable philosophies of Vaishnavas and non-Vaishnavas. So the explanation that's in the second paragraph is explaining the non-difference feature. And then one, on the other hand, could go make an argument or a presentation on the difference. The difference is intrinsic. There's the energetic, and then there's the energy. So one can say there's no difference between the energetic and the energy. And therefore, if you just stop there, full stop, then nature is God, and God is nature. Prakriti is Purusha, Purusha is Prakriti. You just negate the fact that there's two terms, and the two terms are there for convenience, but absolute non-difference. Now that's the materialist, because the materialist doesn't acknowledge there's a source. Nature is the source. What is life? Combination of matter. And when the combination of matter dismantles, then there's no life. That's what death is. That random arrangement of matter that comes together in the form of life is over, and there's no longer life, because the random combination is no longer. That's it. And so then there's different, without going through the different channels of, some persons say, no, there is spirit. And there's spirit and matter, and then there's only one spirit. That's the Mayavadi is, there's only one, there's no supreme, it's just Brahman. Brahman is the absolute truth, we're Brahman, so I'm God, you're God, the tree is God, the dog is God, the fish is God, everything is, because of Brahman, everything is resting upon Brahman, and the other stuff, well, that's false. It doesn't exist. I hit you over the head with a baseball bat, and it just didn't exist. because it's Asat. And then there's Sat. So that's another philosophy. There's only one Brahman. And then so that's going through these three. Then there's others who say, no. There's also Para-Brahman within, in addition to the Brahman, so that's two. And the Mayavadi is going to say, no, it's only one. And they disagree. They'll never agree. As long as they hold to their doctrine, then there's no meeting, there's no reconciliation. So Paramatma realization is for those who are inclined to yoga. So those who are inclined to the Upanishads, within the Upanishads, there's the rendering of the verses of the Upanishads in such a way that all there is Brahman, and everything else is not Brahman, and all there is Brahman. It's similar to Gayatri Mantra. There are chanters of Gayatri Mantra, and to such chanters of Gayatri Mantra, Gayatri is meditation upon the sun. And the Tat word, the pronoun Tat, refers to the sun. So sun worshippers worship through the medium of Gayatri Mantra. Sun worshippers. Because life comes from the sun. Life comes from the sun. Life comes from the sun. And so Tat refers, Gayatri is worshipping of the sun worshippers. And then there are those that say, no. There's that light is Brahman, the spiritual light, not just the light of the sun. The light of the sun is resting upon spiritual light. Because the primordial, before there's a sun, there's spirit. And then there's the sun, chronologically. And then the sun, at the time of cosmic annihilation, the cosmos goes and the sun goes, but there's always Brahman. So Gayatri is meditation on Brahman. This is Brahmeti. And then there are others who say, no. It's meditation upon Paramatma. Because Bhargo Devasya, it's Devasya, it's divine, transcendental. And that transcendental light is Brahman. So Gayatri is meditation on Brahman. And then Brahman is resting upon Paramatma. So it's Paramatma worship. And so yogis, they like Gayatri Mantra for that reason. And then ultimately the Paramatma feature is a partial representation of the Bhagavan feature. So Vaishnavas understand Gayatri Mantra is worship of Bhagavan. His name is not identified in the mantra, but it's worship of that Bhagavan feature of the Supreme. So one mantra, it has some universal appeal. Some like this, some like that, some like the other, and some like the other. And they can disagree, but this verse is indicating the learned transcendentalists, Vedanta Tattva Vidas, the Tattvavits, those that know Tattva. The learned transcendentalists, they understand these are just different features of the same one. Absolute truth. And the absolute truth, according to Vedanta, is that from which everything comes. So what is that from which everything comes? Well, it's the sun, or it's the Brahmajyoti, or it's Paramatma, or it's Bhagavan. So according to one's understanding or conception of the absolute truth, there's different applications. But the learned transcendentalists, Vedanta Tattva Vid, they understand these are different phases or features of the one absolute truth. So there's a non-dual sense. Advayam. Tattvam yajnanam advayam. Dvaya and advaya. Dual and non-dual. So the learned transcendentalists understand these different features are all in the non-dual region, as opposed to in this region, which is the place of duality. There's a non-dual region or realm. Simple. So for those who are simple, or the simple-hearted, then those favoring this, that, and the other thing, they can go on arguing in favor of their disposition or their favor, and it's okay. And the learned transcendentalist isn't disturbed, isn't involved in all of that, because there are different aspects of the one absolute truth. So when the big picture is what all the Vedas is indicating, not just one piece or another piece, but all the Vedas is indicating, then there's this non-dual substance. Again, there's difference or there's distinction. Otherwise, there would not be different terms or nomenclature. So different nomenclature because there's differences. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching, or that's the Bhagavatam's teaching. There's a simultaneous difference and non-difference, and one may emphasize the difference. One may emphasize the non-difference. When emphasizing the non-difference, one has to be very particular about language. It's not absolutely non-different. Just like yesterday morning, it was nice, at 5:30 in the morning, discussing Canto 9, Chapter 11, because we're going with the Chinese devotees over canto after canto after canto, and we're into Canto 9. And in Canto 9, Chapter 11, there's this discussion about Ramachandra as the king. He was that kind of king that worshipped himself because he's a worshiper of the Absolute Truth, and he's the Absolute Truth, so he worshipped himself. How do you worship yourself? If you're a Mayavadi, you get an arti paraphernalia and you have a mirror and you worship yourself in the mirror. And that way you're worshiping the Supreme because I'm the Supreme, so I worship myself. And if you're Ramachandra, so it's not to be mistaken. What he did is not what we do, because there's distinction. The subject-object. But there's a qualitative oneness between the subject and object, as there's a qualitative oneness between the source of energy and the energy. Where does the energy come from? Where does the wind come from, the sunlight come from, and this house come from, and Dallas, Texas, where does it come from? Where does everything come from? And that from which this place comes, or this feature of Prakriti comes, is within the source. So therefore there's a oneness, energetic oneness between the energy and the energetic. Because the energy can't exist without that energy being within the energetic. So there's the oneness feature. There's this Sanskrit term, kevala. So the Shankaracharya's teaching is Kevala Advaita, absolute monism, Kevala Advaita. And our position is Kevala Bhakti. Kevala is a strong word, absolute. So Prabhupada doesn't go into all that, the distinction. That's like a Chaitanya Charitamrita type of topic of making these distinctions more vivid. But the principle, because Canto 1, Chapter 2 is establishing principles without detailed elaboration on principles, but the principle is established. So prior verses to this, verse number 11, has emphasized in language the para-dharma, the supreme dharma of the living entity is bhakti. Bhakti adhoksaje, bhakti unto he who's beyond the senses. Anyway, without reviewing all of those meanings, bhakti has already been emphasized, and now comes this verse. So it's just explaining or shining some light on this verse in light of the previous, light of the context of the previous verses. Bhakti is being emphasized, and one who's a bhakta has particular appreciation for Bhagavan. Thus, Bhagavat Bhakti, or Bhagavat Dharma, found in Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's given is the superlative position of bhakti as the highest form of dharma. So the devotee that reads Srimad Bhagavatam and becomes a little acquainted with Bhagavat Bhakti and Bhagavat Dharma understands the simultaneous difference and non-difference. Simultaneous non-difference is emphasized in this verse. The oneness is emphasized. And then there's there's difference because there's different language, different terms. Brahman is not Paramatma. Paramatma is not Bhagavan. But in terms of tattva, they share qualitative oneness. And it's not confusing. There's diversity. So to be a devotee, to be a qualified devotee, there has to be some amount of intelligence, and intelligence being the faculty of discernment. You can discern this from that. And so there's discernment, at the same time there's appreciation of the fundamental underlying oneness even within that discernment or variegatedness. That's what this verse is saying. The learned transcendentalists understand it. While they're engaged in devotional service, paradharma, they understand there's those folks over there that have preference, not bhakti, their preference is study of the Upanishads, and they reach their conclusion, no problem. It's incomplete, but it's not wrong. And then there's some other folks over there, and they like the process of dhyan. They don't like so much devotional service. They like dhyan. I mean, it's a little bit like Brihat Bhagavatamrita when Gopal Kumar goes to Tapaloka, and the very elevated souls that are residing in Tapaloka, their main activity is dhyan. And when Gopal Kumar comes, and he wants to have conversation, there's no conversation because they're in trance, in dhyan, in meditation. When their meditation session is over, then they have conversation. And they try to encourage Gopakumar, no, you don't need this mantra, you don't need bhakti, because what's the goal of bhakti? You see the personality of Godhead within. We're doing that all the time. You don't need this other, you just need dhyan. Come and join us. He likes, because he wants to see the personality of Godhead. But it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So he decides no. Not like I'm not going to meditate, but I can't stop in my mantra chanting until I realize the fullness of what that mantra chanting is. Otherwise, I'll be guilty of the fault of ingratitude. Because how can I be grateful for something I don't even know what it is? It's very clear logic. So he never gives up his chanting, although he was doing the dhyan activities with the tapasvis in Tapaloka. So they have, the tapasvis, they have some realization of the Paramatma feature, but it's not complete. And he has the direct realization that it's not complete. It's just nice commentary on the Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami. So this is just a further elaboration on this particular verse in the form of Gopakumar experiencing transcendental reality successively, one after the next. Until he comes to the Bhagavan feature, then that's it. He found what he was looking for. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah. Oh, you have a little microphone there. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The question is, in the beginning, when you were talking about the Gayatri Mantra, you were talking about how different people understand it differently.
Yes.
Some people worship it as the sun, some as the Brahman feature. So what I wanted to ask is, does the benefit of doing mantra chanting, is it disparate if you understand the meaning differently?
The result is different if you understand the meanings differently, yes.
But when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, we don't have to understand, and the benefit is...
Well, yes and no. Here's a no example from personal experience. Once upon a time, when I was in college, Richard Alpert, who was a Harvard University professor, left Harvard, went to India, got hooked up with a Mayavadi Babaji, and came back to America and started visiting universities chanting Hare Krishna. He simultaneously, chronologically, at the same time as Prabhupada, was popularizing chanting Hare Krishna. But his chanting of Hare Krishna didn't take his followers to the same place. So the possibility in the case of his followers is, if his followers contacted someone who is infected or is carrying bhakti. So bhakti can create the proper understanding. Without the proper understanding, one isn't going to get the full benefit. One will get some benefit, yes. No, whether his followers would come to the stage of Brahman realization, who can say? Was this particular sadhu from whom he heard the Hare Krishna mantra and in impersonal teaching, had his guru experienced the fullness of Brahman realization, I don't know. But is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But the outcome is not the same. Benefit, yes. Outcome, no. And same with Gayatri Mantra.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Yeah.
There is one question from Guru Maharaj. Will there be an effect on understanding the position of Supreme Lord when one is worshipping the Brahman and Paramatma features? Can we understand these two? That these two are like Namadhyas, which
Like what? Nam Abbas. Nam Abbas.
which still has
Yeah, Nam Abbas has an effect. It's not the full effect, but it has an effect. Same, this Baba Ram Das or Richard Alpert. There was some effect. And the teaching was, it was Mayavad teaching. This is false. So detachment from the false. That was the teaching. And attachment to what? Attachment to, the sound within the mantra, as if there's the mantra and the sound of the mantra are different. Anyway, without going through his thing, there's benefit, but not complete benefit. Does that address the question? Okay. Something else? Yes? Did you have the portable microphone? I can't hear. Go ahead, try again. Keep going. He'll do something back there.
So, two things. One is from today's class. Like trying to see Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan as
Do something.
be able to see them different, separate. But we all know that we can understand philosophy and we can understand this is Brahman, this is Paramatma, this is we can make it.
You make distinctions, yes.
But then, our devotee, our goal is Bhagavan.
Yes. No, right.
So, one more realization I was yesterday last night. 2020 is my year. So, I know that she went to Gandhari and got to the hall, but I did not know that she went for the thing. The trade rate of experience. The number added a lot of more value. When I heard the number, I was shocked. I was in the literary, and I was like, we can forgive people for some time maybe, but then we don't want to again call them or spend time. I did not know that we went for the thing. The trade rate of clown or forms in the number added a lot of value. And I heard the number of the last moment of time. I have given me a different perspective of sometimes for me, sometimes to show my
You're trying to do what?
in the number, I will also by the time. Thank you so much for sharing your topic was so deep for me. But the different options
You're trying to do what?
he helped me, but that over my in the number. So I will catch up with all the questions.
So that's not a question, that's a reflection. Pandita Samadarshana. Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi. Pandita Samadarshana. You know, she was at a very elevated level. And it wasn't cosmetic. It wasn't superficial. That's a reflection. She was attached to Krishna. You know, some years back, she's attached to Krishna. And being attached to Krishna, she had this other capacity along with being attached to Krishna. And it wasn't cosmetic. You know, they Gandhari Dhritarashtra, are not in the category of Shuddha Bhaktas. She's attached to Krishna. Nonetheless, she was serving them. And being attached to Krishna, she had this other, particularly serving Gandhari, attached to Krishna. You know, out of a sense of service to Krishna, but also a sense of compassion, because poor Gandhari, she lost all her sons. Nonetheless, she was serving. So she had, you know, she was filled with grief. Everything was taken, and etc. A sense of service to Krishna, but also a sense of compassion, because poor Gandhari, she lost all her sons. So she had, you know, she was filled with grief. Everything was taken, and etc. Yes.
Not easy, no trouble. But it's all constantly worried about getting trouble, or you feel like something. And then Kunti on the other side, she is on the Bhagavan, like she knows Krishna is God. And but even though she's still a relative, she never came to that Gandhara, where Shuramanan is. So they're two different aspects, both are appreciable, but what is our
Now, what's the question? What is our
goal? Like, we follow.
Yeah, you know, we follow what is natural for us. There's not a rule, and we follow the rule. If you follow the rule, you're going to end up in a certain place, and you follow the spontaneous method, and you may end up in a different place. We follow what is natural. That's, you know, Rupa Goswami's teachings of Raganuga Bhakti. And we follow. So it depends on who is that Ragatmika, the personality that you want to be in the service of. And according to being in the service of that perfected soul, then that's your eternal position. That may become your eternal position. It depends on who is that. Okay? Ragatmika, the personality. No. She's an eternal associate of Krishna. Being in the service of. She's not. It's not a post. That's your eternal position. That may become your eternal position. Are you okay? You sure? You want something to happen? Say it. Okay. No. There's very simple. Ragatmika term, you can look it up in Nectar of Devotion. What does it mean? But it's the position of one of Krishna's eternal associates. They're all in this same category. It's like a group, or like a large category. Perfected souls engaged in Krishna's eternal service. In Nectar of Devotion, in different rasas. But so she has, and others have their rasa, and they're in it. So to see oneself, not beyond the platform of bodily identification, on the platform of the soul's aspiration to be in the service of these such and such elevated person. And then there's many. So according to one's inclination to be in the service of, then that mood is the mood of the Raga Nuga Sadhana. you serve the Ragatmika devotee. It's not, it's emphasis is service, not the emphasis is what I want to attain. It's not me-centered. It's him or her-centered. And so the emphasis is on rasa, not about me. It's not, it's emphasis is service, not the emphasis is what I want to attain. You have to be qualified. It's him or her centered. You have to be qualified. But the answer is if you're qualified, yes. About me. So Ragatmika is the word. So the perfected souls that are in Krishna's eternal service. Yes. No, you're confused. She's not a sadhaka. Ragatmika is the word. The perfected souls that are in Krishna's eternal. She's Ragatmika. Yes. No, one is the follower of, and one is the perfected. She's not a sadhaka. They were in Vrindavan. They weren't in both. No, one is the of course. No. They're Raganugas. They have their spiritual identity. Whichever. And by name, we know who they are in their spiritual world in Goloka Vrindavan. But in this realm, they're in the mood of the followers of a Ragatmika devotee. So the Raganuga sadhana, whichever, to be in the service of the Ragatmika perfected soul. Spiritual world in Goloka Vrindavan simultaneously. This realm, they're not bewildered. The followers of a Ragatmika devotee. Now you get there. Sadhana to be in the service of... I interrupted. I didn't catch what you said. Simultaneously. They're not bewildered. Yes. And there you get there. One can look at their position from either becoming or they were already. And as the already, they were just showing by example. Here's what the becoming looked like. Yes. You can look at it that way. One can look at it, they became their position from either becoming or they were already. And as the Prabhupada key, showing by example, here's what the becoming looked like. You can look at it that way. One can look at it, they became their position from either becoming or they were